Understanding mixing colors is one of the most difficult things in painting for beginners. Even the tonal values are not that hard. It is either darker or lighter, but with mixing colors it is a lot of them, and it is hard to guess what and how much of each color you need to get in a particular hue. Today I want to simplify your life and show a few simple and fun exercises to practice mixing colors on paper without doing useless color charts. I will be using my favorite MEEDEN BaoHong watercolor pad, and in regards to colors, I will use both my traditional palette and MEEDEN for you to compare. If you want to try any of these, I have a discount code NINA10, link in the description below. Here is the first exercise, and please feel free to use any color combination you want. But please pay attention to the consistency of the mixture. It needs to form a bead, so it's approximately 70 to 30 water to paint ratio, so there is more water than paint in this mixture. If there is not enough water, if the mixture doesn't form the bead, it will not mix properly on the paper. I'm starting with ultramarine in one corner, then rinsing the brush and thinking about color, decided to choose brown madder instead of classy burnt sienna. Checking that it has plenty of water, putting it under the blue and mixing it slightly together. And you see, now they're mixing on the paper together. This beautiful gray is exactly what we are after. Now I'm going to grab a bit of water and dilute this completely with water to see what kind of lighter value we get. And now I'm going to switch the order. I'm going to start with the red and continue with the blue. And this is something that you need to do as well. Don't just do blue and red and then move on to a different color, but try to switch the order and see how it affects the painting, how it affects the mixture. And when you have the result, it's best to analyze, does it look cooler or warmer? Does it look redder or bluer? Now let's change the color. Let's use cerulean blue and let's make sure it's got plenty of water in the mix, and let's mix it with cadmium red light. And let's add a bit of water and see what happens when we dilute the tonal value. This is an area that we need to pay special attention to. This transition should be seamless and soft. Let's switch the order once more. Let's start with red and continue with cerulean and see how it affects the mixture. So the red is there, now placing the blue, mixing together, let it run on its own, adding a bit of water under it and let it run, and see what gray we have. I find this mixture is particularly beautiful. I can see this very nice separation of colors and absolutely beautiful granulation. In general, I noticed that adding granulating colors into flat colors works much better than other way around. Now our second exercise, and we're going to do it wet on wet. So first we need to pre-wet the surface, and in this exercise I will be using multiple colors. So I'm going to start with yellow, then I'm going to be adding in order pretty much yellow, oranges and reds and things like that, but please feel free to use any colors without any orders and see what's gonna happen on paper. This is the whole idea of this exercise. You're not doing it for anyone except yourself, except your own interest and curiosity. And again, this soft transition is what we're after. This is what we're experimenting with. Now let's play with cooler colors. I'm going to start with sepia and going to transition it into ultramarine blue, then cerulean blue. And next I'm going to use a little bit of yellow ochre, and then let's just add water and see how it blends all together on paper. Another thing, it's very important to dry this, to let it dry or use hair dryer and assess the mixtures how they dry, how light they dry, how dark they dry, and how the granulation, opacity, on all these things work together when they mix. Another important thing to consider is obviously where you can use it. For example, if you see really nice transition, nice mixture, you can always think, I might use it for sky, or I might use it for shadow. It looks really nice. It looks like it's glowing. Maybe it's good for evening sun or things like that. Another thing that I want to point out, that you would never be able to mix paints on the paper like that with a brush. The only possibility to create this softness is when paints mix together on paper with help of water and gravity. In exercise number 3, we're going to be painting simple silhouettes instead of painting just dots and mixing paints together. So you're still mixing colors, but you're actually painting a silhouette. I'm going to start with the person. So this is a head, and I used a bit of yellow, then a bit of orange. Now I'm adding a little bit of red, and I'm painting a silhouette. If you feel it's easier for you to draw a simple silhouette with a pencil first, please do so, but I would highly recommend not to do this, because this painting is not about making a perfect silhouette, a perfect person, or whatever you choose to paint. It's about mixing colors, and whatever off is in the silhouette, it doesn't really matter as long as you actually follow the rules of mixing. And in regards to rules, let's do a mistake. Let's not add enough water into the blue. Let's grab it straight from the vial and put it in the areas where we want to paint. So as you can see, there is no smooth transition between the pink and the violet. It still forms the bead because we had a bit of water in the pink mixture, but it's not enough to create soft transition. And I'm going to do the same with the cerulean blue. I grabbed that straight from the vial without adding any more water, and as you can see, there is a strong transition, not sharp, it's soft. I would say it's a controlled edge. It would be definitely good for some instances, but this is not what we practice today. We are definitely after a really nice smooth transition and looking what happens in between when you mix these two colors, or 3 or 4 on paper. What happens in that area, what kind of mix we get. So now I'm going to finish his legs, something like that, with violets, and another leg somewhere here. And I'm just approximating, and I think I'm going to give him a backpack or something like that. Definitely on this side, it feels a little bit empty. I'm going to start with violet, but we haven't used burnt umber or sienna and black, so I'm just going to grab all these dark colors and give this guy a bag and mix all these colors with the darker neutrals. And now I think it's going to be a good idea to paint shadow, and let's go in opposite direction. So let's start with cool tones, with blues and violets, and then go into reds, oranges and yellows. And the problem here will be that I will be changing colors from left to right instead of going from up to down. So the colors are not actually mixing on paper because there is no gravity. And the only way to solve it is if we paint all these colors, and then we grab one color with lots of water and go over at the very top. For example, now I'm going to do a brush stroke like that, and it will drop the water down, and it will help all these colors to mix on its own. So the example on the left, the shadow on the left, is a poor mix example, and the example on the right is a good mix example. Now let's actually do something more simple, just in case if people or cars or any other objects are too complex. So let's do an apple, for example. Now I want to show you less predictable way to mix. So I grab a paint on one side of the brush, then turn it around and grab another paint on another side. So one side with yellow, another side with red, and now I'm painting a silhouette of an apple. So this is one side of an apple, and let's do another side of the apple. So here we go, and now I'm going to rinse the brush and start adding different colors. Because we grabbed paint straight from the wells, this mixture wasn't watery enough, so I sprayed it a little bit. Now I'm adding the colors on the wet surface. This is cerulean blue, and now let's add maybe a bit of ultramarine and Prussian blue. So this is ultramarine and Prussian blue together, and this is going at the bottom of an apple. Okay, and I'm grabbing it to the top as well. So this is a leaf or a stick. Let's add a few more colors, maybe violets, just for fun, and grabbing that bead as well, and this will help mixing. And maybe let's add the shadow as well, and I'm going to do the same trick, so picking up purple on one side and yellow on the other side, and just painting sort of a shadow like that. Okay, connecting it with the apple, creating a bit more ragged edge. And this is the leaf or the stem. And now I'm going to add a few more colors. And actually I'm not going to spray this, and you're gonna see the sort of stronger transition again. Not very well mixed transition. But remember, if you struggle with transition, for example, if you did this mistake like that, when there is no blended edges in between the colors, you can always use spray. Just spray it very gently, don't flood it with water, just a couple of sprays over the surface of the painted area, and this should help with blending. And I think this apple needs a bit of a highlight here, just to suggest the shape better. Okay, that's done. And just a reminder, all of that is painted on MEEDEN BaoHong watercolor paper, 100% cotton and MEEDEN paints. So if you like the result and want to test it, this paper and these paints are amazing quality and amazing price. So I would highly recommend, especially for practices like that. It would definitely save you some money without compromising on the outcome. And now exercise number 4. If you want to practice on something a little bit more life related, such as landscape or streetscapes, you can always do this. And instead of thinking about colors, you can actually use whatever colors you want. So you just keep the process the same. For example, first wash, you paint the sky and the background. And this is what I'm doing right now. So these are my skies for 2 different paintings. On the left it's gonna be a streetscape, and on the right it will be a seascape. So for the streetscape I used only 2 colors, and for the seascape, just for the sake of difference, I used 3 colors. And now I'm taking this gray down, and just for the sake of experimenting, I'm going to grab these warmer tones and drop them right into the gray at the bottom. So for the first one I grabbed yellow ochre, and for the second one I grabbed a bit of that pink. So the first wash is finished, and now I'm going to dry this, and then we will paint second wash wet on dry. It is much easier to mix colors on paper during your first wash, because all the mixtures, they're very watery. But with the second wash it's not as easy, because the mixture's thicker. There is not enough water in the mixture to mix itself on the paper with another color. So to solve this, you either need to add more water to the second color. For example, like here, I'm adding more water to the red, and I'm going over the blue with this red mix, with that red color. And this way the blue mixes with the red on the paper. Another option is to actually spray it with spray bottle. But when you spray, you're getting rid of all the sharp edges. So you're basically making the entire surface of the paper damp, and it definitely limits you when you can use the spray bottle, because you not always want soft edges all over the painting. Okay, now we have blue, we have red, and now let's add cerulean blue, for example. So I'm making sure that I'm going right into the red mixture, and then I'm painting in a free space. And now I'm inventing trees or something like that on the right. And I think I'm going to add a bit of yellow ochre just for fun. I have no particular interest in any specific color. I'm just picking whatever I feel like, and this is the whole idea. You just pick whatever colors you want to try to mix and see how it all works on the paper. Now I'm going to dilute these mixtures. This is pretty much water straight from the container, and this is exactly what we did when we practiced doing dots. And I'm going to add a bit of whatever color. I decided to use ultramarine on one side, a bit stronger, and maybe a bit of cerulean on the other side, so something like that. So the first wash is done, I'm drying it, and then we're going to do the third wash, the very thick mixture straight from the vial, and then we will test it, how we can mix colors when the mixture is that thick straight from the vial. Okay, the second wash is dry, and now I'm painting the people's silhouettes, the third wash, and this is wet on dry with a very thick mixture. The problem here obviously is that there is no mixing on paper, but I'm still trying to add a bit more water in the areas where I'm planning to change the color, and in these areas it helps me to blend these two colors together. My favorite phrase is, in watercolor, you don't paint with paint, you paint with water. So basically, as soon as you understand the water parameter in watercolor, you will understand how to paint with watercolor. So the streetscape is finished, and now I'm going to do the last painting, last example, the seascape. And obviously I'm not painting from real life, I'm just inventing this. And I started with ultramarine blue, then transitioned to cerulean blue, then transitioned to yellow ochre, and now I'm using a bit of burnt sienna. And all these mixtures, they're quite watery but not enough, so I'm spraying the area with spray bottle because this is a large area and this is absolutely acceptable. And in the area where I went a bit too far in the sky, I decided to add a land, a bit of a mountain. And I'm obviously not following the rules of perspective. The mountain is burnt sienna, and now I feel like I need to add a bit more water for mixing, and I'm using the brush for that. And now I'm fixing the horizon line with my synthetic flat brush. And now I feel like we need a bit of a reflection, and I'm using ultramarine and whatever red I had on the palette. And the painting is pretty much finished. I'm just going to add a few birds here and there to suggest that this is a seascape. And in addition, the birds are an excellent way to suggest the depth and space in your painting. So definitely the sky without the birds would be a bit too empty, especially in the seascape. Here is our 2 finished practice paintings. Hope you liked it, hope you learned something new today. If so, please like, subscribe and leave a comment. It will help my channel to grow. If you want to learn more or just paint along, please don't forget I have Patreon, and I'm posting my demonstrations weekly and explaining everything in detail along the way. This is all for today. Until my next video. Bye.